So last Friday, Caleb and I met a moose. He was in the middle of a bike trail, which should have given us the official right of way, in my opinion, but given that the average moose weighs over 1,000 pounds, we decided to give him room to make his own path. Had we decided to press forward, that encounter likely would have changed how our vacation went. While on that trip, we also bought bear spray. For all the wildlife we were hoping to see, there was one species we had no interest in encountering. It's funny to spend $65 on a product and hope that you never have to use it. Encounters can change us for the better or for the worse. Sometimes you meet people who change your life, again, for better or for worse. You never forget these encounters. And the Bible is filled with stories who have these dramatic encounters with God. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be exploring some of those encounters, looking at them from different angles to figure out what they teach us about ourselves, what they teach us about God, what they teach us about our relationship with God. And we start today with Jacob. He wrestles in Genesis 32 with God in a very literal sense, walking away transformed. His very identity is changed. It's a story of persistence. It's a story of grace. All of us who wrestle with things in life can relate. Maybe you've wrestled with unanswered prayers. Maybe you've wrestled with a changing or challenging relationship. Do you wrestle with your past, decisions you've made, regret that you hold on to? Some of you may wrestle with decisions your children have made. Maybe you're wrestling with silence from God. Genesis 32 was written for all of us who wrestle with things in life. And into the midst of that wrestling, Jesus speaks through Luke 18, talking about praying and not losing heart. So we're going to start with a brief overview of Jacob. Jacob is known as a trickster, as a schemer. Has never seemed to me the identity most likely to land you a role as a biblical hero. But that's why the Bible is so great. The characters in the Bible are human. They're real. They don't have these perfect stories where they leap from mountaintop experience to mountaintop experience. They have dirty hands. They sometimes have dirty souls. And when we see God at work in their lives, we can relate. Because our lives aren't perfect. We're broken too. And when we see God doing things in Scripture in the lives of broken people, it reminds us that God promises to do work in our imperfect lives, in our imperfect relationships. If you apply for a job, in the modern era, your resume is likely input into some online system where an algorithm decides if you are perfect enough for the job. And it's very common you get auto-rejected because of your flaws, and you get used to it. You get accustomed to thinking as you're applying for the job, I'm going to get some auto-rejection email in some time. And what happens is we take the same mindset to God. We're ready to be rejected because we know our flaws all too well. We know them better than anybody else. We often find ourselves reminding ourselves of those flaws. But the Bible is so different than human systems. It accounts for our flaws. And so we see God at work with imperfect people. And it should give us confidence that we, as imperfect people, that God is at work in our lives too. Jacob has been a schemer his whole life. As a twin, he came out of the womb grabbing at Esau's heel. When he had the chance, he grabbed Esau's birthright too. If you remember that famous story where Esau trades it for a bowl of stew. It took a lie to convince his father to give him the blessing that was meant for Esau. And then he schemed his way into wealth from his father-in-law as well. He manipulated his way through life. And as we're reaching Genesis 32, decades of tricking others seems like it is about to catch up with him. He's about to meet his brother Esau for the first time in a while. And Jacob is scared of the unknown that is coming his way. He sends his family across the river. And Jacob is utterly alone in the night. And into this solitude, into the silence, into the uncertainty, enters a man with whom Jacob begins to wrestle. There is little description. There's just this struggle. There's no explanation. There's just fighting. You know what this feels like? When life seems to break down and you are fighting to get through every minute. You're grappling. You're grasping. You are just trying to hold on with no indication of when it will end. This is Jacob's fight. This is Genesis 32. This is often our story as well. So Genesis tells us Jacob wrestles until daybreak. He realizes later this is not a man, but he has seen God face to face. We don't understand exactly how this occurs, whether it's an angel, whether it's some pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ. But Jacob has a direct encounter with the divine. The same God who carves mountains, who gives life to stars, comes and wrestles with Jacob. And God doesn't defeat him, not because God is weak, but God chooses to enter into Jacob's struggle. Meets the Jacob who has wrestled with life, the Jacob determined to hold on by whatever means necessary. God doesn't crush Jacob with power like he could have, but engages with him in the language Jacob knows and shows Jacob grace by not overwhelming him. Tim Keller talks about God's blessings not as a reward for the weak, but as a gift for those who are weak. Not as a reward for the strong, but as a gift for those who are weak, but refuse to let go. Jacob persists. Listen to Jacob. I will not let you go unless you bless me. It's a perfect picture of determination. The man who had schemed and tricked others to get what he wants, he realizes he can't win by strategy, but he will not let go without a blessing. Jesus talks about this kind of attitude in the story from Luke 18. He tells a story about this unjust judge who had little respect for others, no fear of God, and there's a widow in the city who will not cease coming to the judge in looking for justice against her adversary. The judge eventually relents because he knows the widow will not stop coming unless she gets what she wants. And Jesus tells the people, even if this unjust judge is going to relent to someone in society who's powerless but persistent, how much more will a loving God respond to God's people? This is Jacob's story. He holds on because he has faith that the struggle he is in the midst of is not the end of the story. So he keeps holding on. He's not going to give up because he believes there is a redemption storyline that runs through the midst of it all. And he's going to hold on until redemption comes because that's what he believes about God. Scripture echoes this. There is redemption dripping off of every page of Scripture, showing us the struggle is not the end. Jacob lives it here, and we see it page after page after page, with the darkness of the empty tomb in the Gospels threatening to break the trend. But the gospel is too strong for death, too powerful to despair. And so the light of gospel hope breaks through even that. And the theme runs true straight through the end of Revelation and overflowing into our stories too. There is redemption at the end of the struggle. Like Jacob, we don't know how long the struggle goes on for, which is so frustrating and terrifying and can shake the very core of our identities. Like the persistent widow, we don't know how long we need to keep enduring for, but we know that daybreak is coming. There is hope at the end of the long, dark night of the soul. And so like these characters, we are called to hold on, to endure, to persist, because we have faith in the midst of the struggle that our encounter ultimately will lead to blessing. When daybreak comes for God asks Jacob to let him go. Again, God enters in grace. God could have just made Jacob let him go, but he asks. And God has touched Jacob's hip, setting it out of socket, so Jacob is in terrible pain, such that he will never walk normally again. Some of you know this type of pain, right? This pain is transformational. It builds up scars and it never leaves us for the rest of our lives. We remember that pain. Again, not a sign of God's absence, but simply a reality of the struggles we go through. The Bible knows we have such pages in our own stories, and our biblical heroes have them too. They are reminders that God meets us in the struggle. And God doesn't send Jacob or us away from them the same. We carry the scars, and we carry something else too. God asks Jacob what his name is, not because God doesn't know it, but because Jacob is given an opportunity to be redeemed. Once Jacob is asked by his father who he is, and Jacob lies to get the blessing that's meant for Esau, the older son. And so he tells his father that he is Esau. And it's similar to when Jesus asks Peter after the resurrection, "Do you love me?" And so what Jesus is doing, he's giving Peter an opportunity to be redeemed from his mistakes. Peter has denied Jesus 3 times after Jesus was arrested. And so 3 times Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" giving Peter a chance to redeem himself. Jacob is given the same chance too. Who are you? And here his name is changed to Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Jacob's very identity is changed in his wrestling with God because Jacob is willing to hold on through the night, and he's blessed for it. Now Jacob, he still has to wander into all the uncertainty in front of him. He is still going to meet Esau. The outcome is still uncertain. Life is not free and easy now, but he has wrestled and he has endured. It reminds me of Jesus in the garden, praying with such fierceness his sweat has become drops of blood. He endures his challenge in the garden. The cross is still in front of him, but he moves forward after the struggle. He persists. God meets us in our wrestling, and there is grace for us. God does not come to destroy, but to help us endure with love and with tenderness. So hold on in the midst of it. Persist, endure, trust that God is at work, working that same redemption thread into our lives through every dark night and into every sunrise. The one who endures the cross to show us the love and mercy of God, to show us the glory of the empty tomb, will not let you go, will not give you up to the struggle. And so, friends, endure. Trust that God will meet you in the midst of it all.